dominate that conference. I don't know what holiday games they have left if they have a tough game against the top team in a tournament before they jump into January league play. But it's going to be wide open all the way through to the NCAA tournament.
All right, we'll put a book on here where we should start it. We're going to go back to college football, and I'm wearing my Michigan attire, my maize and blue here, and I wonder why. I'll be up in Orlando to cover the Michigan Wolverines and the Alabama Crimson Tide. This is one of those situations where Jim Harbaugh, Nick Saban. Jim Harbaugh did get a signature win against Notre Dame, and I don't think that Nick Saban really wants to be in this game, but he is nonetheless. Orlando may be better of it, getting a matchup of this caliber. What are your thoughts about the Michigan-Alabama game on New Year's Day?
Yeah, we can talk about that, but let's go back to Duke basketball a little bit later, too.
Sure. Well, do it now, then get to Michigan to wrap it up.
So, yeah, I'm really torn on this one. There's two programs I hate. It's Alabama and Michigan.
That's true. You're a Michigan State guy.
And
forgot about that. Okay.
And I never like Alabama, period. And I like him even less with Nick Saban coaching because he left Michigan State in the middle of the night for LSU.
Right, I remember that.
And he was never able to build the program up the way Mark D'Antonio has built the program at Michigan State, although the Spartans had a tough year this season. And that's why I don't like Saban being called the greatest coach ever. He's just got so much talent at Alabama, he can't lose. He didn't win like this when he was at Michigan State, and he didn't win as an NFL coach. So
right.
I just don't like all this praise for Nick Saban.
Me either. You're speaking to the choir.
I think you have a good point that Alabama, they might just go through the motions. They're so used to being in the college football playoffs that this might be a letdown for them. Michigan, they have holes in their team, but they might rally up to be more motivated against Alabama than Alabama is against them. And like I say, these are two teams I hate. I always root against them, but I guess I'll go with the Big Ten on this game, and I'd like to see Michigan beat Alabama.
Boy, that had to be painful for you, wasn't it, Shanny? Come on.
Very painful.
Oh, I know. Hey, listen, when we were up in North Carolina together, I know what color you were wearing. I wasn't colorblind. I know it was green. Okay, green at a stoplight means go. I won't sit here and tell you what happened to me because some guy nearly ran a red light and killed us.
Yeah, in your case, you got the yellow one. It should have been yield. So.
Yeah, right, whatever. Okay, go figure. That was good. But all right, yeah, so all right, Mr. Shanahan is going for the maize and blue reluctantly, but then again, we both are in the haters of Nick Saban. I just can't stand Saban the way he left the Miami Dolphins high and dry. I mentioned this earlier, and he left some unfinished business up at Michigan State. And he didn't do too bad with LSU, but you know what? Never mind. I'm done with Nick Saban. I think that his team could be going through the motions, and yet this might be one of the most watched bowl games above and beyond some of the other matchups, including these playoff games, because of the prestige of the two programs. So, go for it.
Yeah, and like you say, Michigan might still have something to prove. They showed a lot when they beat Notre Dame, but then they lost to Ohio State.
Right.
So they haven't really completed their season in that sense. So they might have a lot more motivation than Alabama.
Yeah, well, Shea Patterson's looking for an NFL job. One way to do it is beat Nick Saban in Alabama, but that'll be for another day. All right, we'll let you go to Duke since you like to talk about.
Yeah, there you go again, because Alabama won't have Tua Tagovailoa. They'll
right.
Their back.
Mac Jones.
So that's another difference.
All right, so go ahead. Let's talk Duke.
Yeah, on Duke, I was going to talk about how, when Kansas tumbled from number one, you kind of expect Duke to climb up and be on the verge of being the number one again after having been number one earlier in the season. But they stayed at number 4. And I was really surprised by that. I wrote about this. Duke usually gets the benefit of the doubt in poll voting. And then, of course, coaches have long complained that Coach K gets the benefit of the doubt from the refs. So I was really surprised to see Ohio State leapfrog Duke from number 5 to number 2. And then Duke stayed number 4 in the AP poll, although they did move up one spot in the number 3 USA Today poll by the coaches. And the reason I was surprised is because I think Duke did enough last week to earn a chance to move up. They played and beat Wofford, which is a big Southern Conference team. And Wofford is an NCAA tournament team. A lot of people may not know the name, but that's a quality program. And 4 days earlier, they had beaten North Carolina at North Carolina. Now, I know North Carolina is down, but it's still a significant win at North Carolina.
Right.
Well, Duke, that should have been a tough game for them against Wofford when they played on, Friday night, yeah. And Duke won 86-67, even though Trey Jones, their sophomore point guard, was held out of the game. Right. Coach K had said after the game that he had a slight sprain to his foot. If it was an ACC game, they would have played him, but they decided to hold him out. And so you're talking about a good team, Wofford, and Duke without its most important player, and they still won by 19 points. So quite a performance by Duke, and I thought it was worthy of moving up to number 3 or number 2, heck, maybe even number 1. They might be the best team in the country come March.
Yeah, I was about to mention that too. You know what? All this poll stuff is good for guys like you and I and Lewis to talk about, but in the end, I think Krzyzewski will certainly be in it when it's all said and done easily, barring any crazy upset that occurs in the tournament. So, the poll stuff just keeps us talking. In the end, the big dance will keep us. We'll find out who's walking through the tournament. So, but can't believe I got you to root for me. Michigan, to pull for Michigan on this show. I actually better go ahead and document this down because I can't imagine how many times we do that. Although, we'll structure your appearances when Michigan takes on Michigan State, and you'll take the night off from ACC. We'll give you 15 minutes alone on that game alone, and we'll just add you later in the week to talk about your other stuff. Now that college football's about to drop off anyways pretty soon. So
that's a classic no-win situation for me.
I know. Don't worry. You think we make it easy on you? No way, buddy. But we make it fun, we make it real, and we make it entertaining. And isn't that what it's all about, Tom?
That's right.
All right, since we're during Christmas time, we got another minute that's an ally to us. Go ahead and give a shout-out to your book really quickly. We have another minute or so to go.
Yeah, visit my website, ShanahanReport.com. You'll see a link to my book, Ray of Light, R-A-Y-E, and that's titled after Jimmy Ray, who is Michigan State's quarterback on their 1965 and 1966 national championship teams. And the book is about how Michigan State and head coach Duffy Daugherty, who's in the College Football Hall of Fame, led the integration of college football with his Underground Railroad teams in the 60s.
Well, okay, we'll find out whether your predictions get railroaded into reality when you go ahead and talk about the final game between the Final Four, TBD to be determined. But meanwhile, Tommy, as always, glad to have you on the program, and look forward to your next appearance here on the Sports Exchange. And Tom, why don't you go ahead and mention for those individuals that have Twitter how they can track you down.
Yeah, follow me on Twitter at Shanny4055. Shanny is just like Shanahan, SHANNY 4055.
All right, so folks, we got Twitter. Tom Shanahan's a must follow. And while we're talking about Twitter, if you want to follow the South Florida Tribune and look at these broadcasts, at Tribune South does it on Twitter. And if you're on Facebook, you can look us up, South Florida Tribune, on Facebook as well. And Lewis, go ahead. What's your following?
You can follow me on Twitter at Adio_Lewis. You can also find me on Facebook at Lewis Adio Weiss, where I post a lot of the content I post on the South Florida Tribune. And yeah, like Scott said, give us a follow on social media. We're still trying to grow the brand, and we want to hear from you and interact with you. And, that's what we want to do in 2020 more. Enlighten yourself. Read Shanahan's book in 2020 if you got a New Year's resolution. Also, one of your resolutions should be to follow us on Twitter. So that's all I got to say on that, though.
And meanwhile, I'll just take on the role of Roadrunner over the weekend because I'm not sure if I'll be going. I know I'll be going to Orlando on January 1, probably the night of the 31st. But, who knows what my travels will be. So we'll go ahead and track my travels. And Tom Shanahan will be getting some nice text messages about what we're going to do to keep it real throughout the course now that college football is about to come to a conclusion. So, all right, Tom, thanks again for being on the program. Appreciate you, and we'll be in touch very soon. All right, Tommy?
Okay, thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. Thanks for being on the program, Tom. Thank you. Good night. So, what are your thoughts?
Yeah. I had a question I wanted to ask you because it is
Sure.
true. The last time that we spoke college basketball rankings with Shanahan was when I believe Michigan was the surprise number one, under first-year coach Juwan Howard. And I think Gonzaga, like Keith just said, was his number one now. I believe at the time in that recent poll that was put out then, they were 7th. Do you think, as a sports fan and as somebody who covers, sports on a national level, you think it's good that we have this constant flip-flopping of number one?
Yeah, I have no problem with it.
Because, if we had a number one that kind of lasted a majority of the season, it'd be kind of boring. We'd kind of just be contextualizing how great that one is.
College basketball is what it is. Nobody cares.
Yeah.
I don't care whether you're in fantasy football, okay, and if you're the number one seed, if you don't win in the playoffs, who the heck really cares anyways?
Yeah, as long as you get into that, the month of the Irish, March, I think that's really all that matters. It just depends on what you do in March Madness that really determines, how great your season really was.
Well, I'll give you a hockey reference. Lots of times the teams that win the President's Cup for the best record ever that season don't necessarily win the Stanley Cup. That could happen in any sport because when you start to get it into the postseason, that's when you find out who your clutch contributors are and when coaches get paid to make the key decisions. And I don't care what level you're on. March Madness is an event all of its own. You realize that David and Goliath are some of your main characters, and but the poll stuff is what it is, Lewis. Okay, all it does is keep guys like you and I in the media talking.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's
Tom,
what I was going to say. That's what I was
all
thinking.
It really does.
Yeah.
It's hearsay. It's probably story ideas for you or whatever the heck it is. But in the end, you know what? Does it really matter? No. Postseason, pal. That's how it's always been, anyways, isn't it?
And that's generally how they gauge it. Trust me, as somebody who's seen a lot of postseason failure on the TV screen, I know firsthand what that's like. But, you want to preview our next guest coming up in a couple
Jake
minutes?
Ronholt is due up next. And Jake and I will be doing the Sports Exchange on alternate nights when you're not in here so that we can expand you throughout the network doing different things. So won't get into any more of that. I want to leave some of the announcements for later on as time goes on. But Jake has done a really good job, and I always look forward to what he has. He certainly brings a lot of energy to the table. Here's a guy that's been with the Dan Patrick School of Broadcasting. He works with the American Sportscasters Association. That's how I found him, through LinkedIn. So for all you people that want to know how beneficial LinkedIn is, then that's a good opportunity to do that. But, Jake brings a lot of charisma and energy, and he's very prepared with what he does, and that's what it's all about. We try to bring on people that put the effort into making their minutes count, as we would say in basketball or in any sport that involves time. That you have to earn your time on this program. I don't care who you are, you've got to earn it.
Mm-hmm. And he's like the Energizer Bunny that we need at the end of this show. The guy just comes in and he hits you kind of like a ray of fire. He's just so quick.
But you can use him anywhere. I want moving parts with this program, but he's assumed the closer's role. We've had other people that have had it, not to say who will be in and out of the rotation as time goes on. Again, the one thing about our industry, it's an evolving process with a lot of individuals for whom contribute when they're called upon. And that's really what it comes down to, I think, anyway. So far, we had 3 great guests up to the moment. Michael Keller, as usual, was fantastic. David Levin, and, of course, Tom Shanahan. So these guys certainly do an outstanding job, and that's pretty much what we try to get done in terms of what we're looking to get accomplished here. And that's the way I look at it. We got, you're back in the studio. Tell people what you've accomplished during your time away from the studio.
Just still working on the editorial side. I recently just got a paying gig on the side to make some extra money with Grit Daily, doing some writing for them. Definitely good. But of course, my priorities are with the South Florida Tribune. You have the Alabama game coming up, though, the Citrus Bowl against Michigan. If you were to give me one word to describe how excited, your level of excitement for that game, or what you come to expect, in that game on the 1st of January as we usher in the new decade of the 2020s. Give me that one word real quick, and just to convey, how you're feeling about this upcoming game you'll be covering.
Well, I'm excited. When I had a gut feeling or an inkling that that this matchup could happen. I think people got sick and tired of seeing Michigan against Florida and some of the other SEC schools. If you have an opportunity to get a marquee matchup like this one here, and that beat Michigan and Alabama, you take it. The Citrus Bowl has been known to